You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. I'm Pinky Webb. The Chinese Coast Guard is involved in yet another bullying incident against its Philippine counterpart in the West Philippine Sea. The Philippine Coast Guard confirms Chinese vessels shadowed and cut off their vessel in the Ayungin Shoal last June 30. This forced the Filipino crew to drastically reduce their speed. The PCG says a team from China were in full force with another Chinese Coast Guard vessel sailing all the way to Ayungin from Scarborough Shoal. That's quite far. Let's go straight to the source of the story. We have PCG spokesperson for the West Philippine Sea, Commodore Jay Tarriela. Commodore, maraming salamat po sa inyong oras. Welcome to the source.
Good morning, Miss Pinky. Good morning din po sa mga tagapanood niyo, ma'am.
At talagang uumpisahan ko talaga sa, again, isa na namang insidente ng panghaharas, ng ang tinatawag nga ng bullying. Okay, June 30. Sir, when I heard about this, my first question was, bakit parang ang tagal bago lumabas sa media?
Well, the reason why it takes some days bago natin mailabas to, ma'am, no? Although this was already tweeted by Mr. Ray Powell, and then it was also published by the Philippine Star. We need to wait for the Philippine Coast Guard vessels to return to Puerto Princesa, wherein we can actually verify and conduct investigation of what really transpired, besides from the fact that we are also waiting for the photos and the videos. At the same time, saka lang natin talaga mailalabas the moment na meron talaga tayong concrete na story of what really happened.
I understand.
And then after we thoroughly discuss and talk and investigated this incident, that's the time that we asked the National Task Force West Philippine Sea for their clearance to publicize this incident.
Yeah, so it's not as easy as you were informed by the Philippine Coast Guard. You wait for the vessels to actually go back to Puerto Princesa and conduct an investigation of some sort, you know, one way or another. Understandable, sir. Kailan sila nakabalik from that June 30 incident to Puerto Princesa?
Nakabalik sila, ma'am, last July 4, 5, and then we conducted investigation about this, ma'am.
Sir, so tell us, in a situation like this, that the Philippine Coast Guard, kasi di ba ang situation dito is the Philippine Coast Guard, ano ba yung tawag doon? Sinasamahan nila yung Navy, di ba? Yung Navy, para po mag-resupply mission sa Ayungin Shoal. Tama ho ba?
Well, technically, ang ginagamit nila, ma'am, is the boats. It's not actually a Navy boat. It's an indigenous boat that carries their supply. And then the Philippine Coast Guard MRV vessels will escort this. Magre-rendezvous kami sa Escoda Shoal. We'll wait for these boats to arrive there. And then from Escoda, we proceed to Ayungin Shoal.
Ano po yung boats na yon? Pasensya na po, yung ginagamit. Kasi I want to understand it better. So, ini-escort ng Philippine Coast Guard ang Navy boats. Tama ho? So, malaki ho ba itong mga Navy boats? So, maliit lamang?
Hindi po ito, ma'am, Navy boat. Hindi siya commissioned Navy vessel. They're actually using, kaya nga ang description po natin dito, Ma'am Pinky, is an indigenous boat, no?
Indigenous boat.
The reason why we need that kind of boat, no, is kailangan niyang makapasok sa shallow area ng Ayungin Shoal. And then at the same time, makapag-alongside, no, makadikit sa BRP Sierra Madre.
Pero
the Philippine Coast Guard will only stay outside the Ayungin dahil mababaw na yun, mababahura na siya.
Opo. Pero itong indigenous boat na to na sinasabi nyo, ang sakay-sakay po ay Navy.
Yes, ma'am. And also the supply.
Yes, para po sa BRP Sierra Madre. Okay, I just wanted to find out from Puerto Princesa, Commodore, all the way to pagdating sa malapit sa Ayungin Shoal kung saan nga eventually magkaka-resupply mission. What is the travel time of that? How long does that take?
Well, I think less than 24 hours. We waited there like June 20, 29 and then June 30 sila dumating. But I don't want to disclose the entire travel time, Miss
Okay, sir.
Pinky, no?
Sige.
Um,
Opo, I was just really curious how long it takes. That's fine, Commodore. So, balikan po natin yung June 30. Give us more information on what happened.
What happened last June 30 is that, yun nga, ang sabi ko ma'am, when we already had a chance to rendezvous etong boats na to sa Skoda Shoal, we departed together with these boats. And when we arrived with a distance of 10.5 nautical miles from Ayungin Shoal, these two China Coast Guard vessels, 5201 and 4203, nag-carry out na sila ng dangerous maneuver with an attempt to block the Philippine Coast Guard vessels from entering or coming close to Ayungin Shoal, and also persistent radio challenges as they carry out dangerous maneuver. They came as close as 100 yards. No, this is a very dangerous distance because it might be might lead to collision. But because of our the seamanship skills of our commanding officers of these two Philippine Coast Guard vessels, they were able to decrease the speed abruptly and to make sure na hindi nila babanggain itong dalawang China Coast Guard vessels. And then as we come closer with a distance of 2.9 nautical miles, we were also sinalubong na tayo, sir, ma'am, no? We were blocked by the 6 Chinese Maritime Militia to support the China Coast Guard vessels para hindi tayo makalapit pa sa Ayungin Shoal. And then we were also surprised that another China Coast Guard vessels came all the way from Bajo de Masinloc, as you mentioned a while
Scarborough.
ago. 3103. Kaya naging tatlong China Coast Guard vessels na to. However, what is worth to mention here is that despite of all this harassment and aggressive maneuvers of these vessels of China, we are successful in ensuring that these boats that we escorted will be able to enter Ayungin Shoal and come alongside BRP Sierra Madre.
I want to talk about those pictures that we showed a while ago, how close that was. As you mentioned a while ago, kung hindi po nag-lower ng speed, yung Philippine Coast Guard to what you said is about, basta nag-decrease po sila ng speed, no? I'm not going to pretend I know nautical miles, sir, but if they didn't do that, that would have been a collision right there. But we need to take a short break. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Please stay tuned. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. I'm Pinky Webb. Our source today, PCG spokesperson for the West Philippine Sea, Commodore Jay Tarriela. Commodore, I want to go back to that picture. Although there were two vantage points, no? It appears very close. The Chinese Coast Guard and the Philippine Coast Guard. How near is that, sir? Is that still 100 yards right there?
Well, based on the report of the commanding officer, there's an approximate distance of 100 yards, Miss Pinky.
So, sabihin na po natin, pero nangyari naman po, they decreased their speed. Had they not, that would have been a clear collision, sir?
Yes, ma'am. That would have been a collision. The Philippine Coast Guard, if we were not able to decrease our speed, we could have collided the China Coast Guard vessel, ma'am.
And what would have happened to our boat and our people?
Well, in any typical maritime incident, there's a possibility of capsizing for the much smaller vessel, ma'am.
Which is ours.
Which is ours.
Kita naman po natin yung laki nung yung Chinese Coast Guard compared to the Philippine Coast Guard. Commodore, I know that you said, and I'm sure there have been radio challenges back and forth, but wasn't there any clear violation on this, how near the two boats reached? I mean, is there any, I read something that there's supposed to be a convention on the international regulations for preventing collisions. Kasi, simply put, sir, kung dumidiretso o the Philippine Coast Guard boat was moving forward at hinarang po Eh di obvious naman po sinong humarang, hindi ho ba? So, what kind of action can be taken against them? Because if we did not decrease speed, that would be very unfortunate for our boat and the people in there, on board.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Pinky, as you may be aware, this is not the first time that the Chinese Coast Guard did this dangerous maneuver. And in the past, whenever we document this kind of actions of the Chinese, it is also part of our diplomatic protest that is being filed by the Department of Foreign Affairs. And they also highlighted that the Chinese, being a signatory state to that international convention on prevention of collision, violated some rules on that particular convention, Ms. Pinky.
That's, would you say that's a very clear violation, sir?
That's a very clear violation, ma'am.
Sir, Commodore, I know that there was a similar incident in April. Ano po? Would you say this is the closest the two ships have nagkalapit? Kasi I know there was also dangerous maneuver, I think sometime in April. Would you say this is the closest?
Well, sometime in April, ma'am, we have embedded people from wires, particularly Associated Press, AFP, and even BBC. They were able to document how close the Chinese Coast Guard tried to block the Philippine Coast Guard, also in the same vicinity in Ayungin Shoal.
Apo.
Based on the report of this international media, they claim that it is as close as 30 to 40 yards.
Mas malapit pa.
So, yes, ma'am. But for the photos, I think it's all about the angle.
Yun na nga po eh.
I still trust with the report of our commanding officers whenever they said that it is approximate distance. It is more or less 100 yards.
Yeah.
So if we're going to base on the records, I think in last April, it's much more closer. It's because it's only 30 to 40 yards.
Sobrang lapit na nun, Commodore. Commodore, what has been any response from the DFA or the National Task Force on the West Philippine Sea?
Yes, ma'am. Right after we completed the special report about this mission, we immediately submitted this to the National Task Force West Philippine Sea. And this was already discussed. Of course, this was chaired by the National Security Advisor, General Año. And the Department of Foreign Affairs was also notified about this particular incident. As to the diplomatic action that has to be carried out by the DFA, I know that they're going to have one, but as to what that is in particular, it's for the DFA, ma'am, to probably explain it much further.
We'll try to ask them about that. PCG spokesperson for the West Philippine Sea, Commodore Jay Tarriela. Sir, thank you. And to all your men and women, maraming salamat din po.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
CNN Philippines is reaching out to the Chinese embassy for their comment, but they have yet to respond to our request. Thank you for joining us here on The Source. I'm Pinky Webb. You're watching CNN Philippines.